The first time I met her parents, I was wearing a suit I'd saved 3 months to buy. It wasn't expensive by their standards. Maybe $400 total, including the tailoring. I remember standing in their foyer, this massive marble-floored entryway that echoed when I walked across it, and her mother looked at me the way you'd look at a stray dog that wandered onto your lawn. Like I was something that needed to be shooed away before it caused a mess. Her father shook my hand like he was testing whether I had a firm grip or not. Like that meant anything. Like the strength of a man's handshake tells you whether he can provide for your daughter. He held on just a second too long, squeezing just a little too hard, and I squeezed back because I'd been around men like that my whole life. Men who need to establish dominance in a handshake because they don't have it anywhere else in their soul. Claire had told me they were wealthy. She'd said it like it was a warning, like I needed to prepare myself. But you can't prepare yourself for being made to feel like nothing. You can't brace yourself for the way rich people can make you feel invisible just by looking through you. Her mother, Marguerite, asked me what I did for a living within the first 2 minutes. Not in a friendly way. In a way that made it clear she was conducting an assessment, a cost-benefit analysis of her daughter's life choices. I told her I owned a small contracting business. Residential work. Kitchens, bathrooms, sometimes whole home renovations if the job was right. Oh, she said. Like I'd told her I collected garbage. Mom, Claire said, trying to smooth it over. He's very successful. He has 5 employees now. Marguerite nodded, but the nod was patronizing, the kind of nod you give to a child who tells you they want to be an astronaut. That's nice, dear. The housing market must be challenging these days. The father, Theodore, barely looked up from his phone. He was a financier of some kind, or maybe a venture capitalist. Claire had tried to explain it to me once, but it was all abstract to someone like me. Money making money. Paper moving paper. I built things with my hands. I understood wood and tile and concrete. I understood what it meant to wake up with sore shoulders and calluses that never quite healed. These people lived in a world where the worst pain they'd ever experienced was a quarterly earnings report that came in slightly below projections. The dinner that night was the most uncomfortable meal of my life. 8 courses. Each one smaller than the last. Each one served on plates that probably cost more than my first truck. I didn't know which fork to use, and I could feel them watching me, waiting for me to make a mistake. Claire kept squeezing my hand under the table, trying to tell me it was okay, but it wasn't okay. It was never going to be okay with these people. Why don't you tell us about your family? Marguerite asked somewhere around the 4th course. A soup of some kind. Something with cream and truffles. I hesitated. I'd been dreading this question. There's not much to tell, I said. My father passed a few years ago. My mother works at the hospital. She's a nurse. My brother, well, we don't talk much. Divorce? Theodore asked. Not with concern. With curiosity. Like he was gathering data. No. He made some choices I couldn't support. We had a falling out. Theodore nodded like he'd expected as much. Like people from my background were always having falling outs with each other, always tangled up in the kind of drama that kept you from getting ahead. Claire tells us you went to a trade school, Marguerite said. I did. Plumbing and electrical certs too. It pays the bills. Does it? The bills. I felt Claire tense beside me. Mom. I'm just asking, dear. I want to make sure my daughter is going to be taken care of. I take care of Claire, I said. She doesn't want for anything. I know I don't have a trust fund or a portfolio, but I work hard. I'm building something. Building something, Theodore repeated, and there was this slight smile on his face, This condescending amusement. That's very blue-collar of you. I admire the work ethic. Really, I do. My grandfather was a carpenter, believe it or not. He worked with his hands. But he also knew that the real money was in moving up. In making your hands matter less and your brain matter more. I run a business, I said. I don't just swing a hammer. I manage budgets, coordinate with architects, handle client relations. It's not a hobby. Of course not, son. I didn't mean to suggest. The way he said son made me want to walk out right there. But Claire was looking at me with those eyes, those desperate please don't let them ruin this eyes, and I stayed. I'd stayed for her before. I'd stay for her again. That was the problem with loving someone. You kept giving them chances to prove that the love was worth it, even when everything around you was screaming that it wasn't. That was 3 years ago. 3 years of small insults and big ones. 3 years of being treated like a charity case at family gatherings, of having to explain my situation to strangers at cocktail parties, of being made to feel like I was somehow tricking their daughter into a life she was too good for. 3 years of keeping my mouth shut because I loved Claire and I thought she could see something in me that they couldn't. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand how it all came together. How the wedding became the breaking point. How everything I'd been holding in finally had nowhere left to hide. Claire and I got engaged about a year into our relationship. I proposed on the roof of a house I was renovating. It was still a skeleton, just studs and joists and the faint outline of what it would become. I'd brought up a cheap bottle of champagne and some cheese from the grocery store, and I told her I wanted to build our life the same way I build houses. One board at a time. One nail at a time. Solid and true and meant to last. She said yes. She cried. For a moment, it was perfect. Then we had to tell her parents. They didn't yell. They were too refined for that. Theodore just got very quiet, and Marguerite started asking questions about how I'd paid for the ring, where I saw us living, what my 5-year plan was. I told them I'd been saving for a down payment on a small house outside the city. A fixer-upper. Something we could make our own. Marguerite's expression shifted into something I can only describe as profound disappointment. Outside the city. She said. Claire, darling, you've never lived outside the city. You can't even parallel park. I can learn, Claire said. It'll be fine, Mom. We're not doing the big house thing right away. We want to start small. Start small, Theodore repeated. The way he said it made me feel like we were discussing nuclear codes instead of housing. That's one way to put it. Another way would be to say you're settling. I'm not settling, Claire said. I love him. Love. Such a simple word. Such a complicated reality. Her parents didn't care about love. They cared about appearances, about the narrative they could present to their friends at the country club. Their daughter marrying a contractor. The whispers that would follow. The judgment. But Claire loved me. And I loved her. And I was stupid enough to believe that love could bridge any distance, including the chasm between a construction site and a corner office. The wedding planning started about a month after the engagement. Marguerite took over immediately. It wasn't offered as a suggestion. It was a takeover, a coup staged under the banner of maternal helpfulness. I know what's appropriate, she told Claire during one of their phone calls. I was in the other room, trying to focus on a bid for a new job, but I could hear her through the wall. People like us have certain standards. We can't just show up at the courthouse in something from the mall. There are expectations. The expectations, it turned out, were extensive. A venue in the Hamptons that cost more per hour than some people make in a month. A catering company that specialized in bespoke culinary experiences and charged accordingly. A live band that had apparently played at someone's cousin's wedding and was therefore essential. A photographer who worked mostly with celebrities. Floral arrangements that required a team of 3 people to assemble. A custom dress that had to be flown in from Paris. I sat in on one of the planning meetings at their house, and I watched them lay out the budget like it was nothing. Theodore casually mentioned that they'd set aside about $200,000 for the wedding. Just like that. $200,000. For one day. For a party that would be over before anyone had time to appreciate it. I made $140,000 a year before, and that was a good year. A really good year. And they were talking about spending more than that on flowers and appetizers. Claire and I have some ideas too, I said, when they finally paused for breath. We were thinking maybe something smaller. More intimate. Marguerite looked at me like I'd suggested sacrificing a goat. Smaller? But I've already put deposits down on everything. The venue alone was. I'm not saying cancel anything, I said. I'm just saying maybe we could scale back a little. Make it more about us and less about. I don't know. The spectacle. The spectacle, Theodore said. You call it a spectacle. I call it a proper celebration for my only daughter. You'd rather have a barbecue in a backyard somewhere. I didn't say that. Then what are you saying? Marguerite asked. Because it sounds like you're saying you don't want my daughter to have the wedding she deserves. No, I just. Sam, Claire said, touching my arm. Let's talk about this later. But there was nothing to talk about. They'd already made up their minds. They'd already started spending money. And I was just the guy standing in the way of their vision. Look, I said, forcing myself to stay calm. If you two want to pay for the wedding, that's fine. I appreciate it. But I want to contribute. I want to put something toward it. I know I can't match your budget, but I can at least cover the rehearsal dinner or something. That's traditional, right? The groom's family handles the rehearsal dinner. Theodore and Marguerite exchanged a look. That look. The look that said they'd already discussed something and I wasn't going to like it. Actually, Marguerite said, we were thinking your family might not be comfortable with something like that. Comfortable. The rehearsal dinner. The kind of event we're planning. It's going to be formal. Very formal. We'd hate for anyone to feel out of place. I felt my jaw tighten. My mother would be fine with formal. She's a nurse. She's used to demanding environments. I'm sure she is. But there's a difference between a hospital and, well, this. And your brother, you said you don't even talk to him. It's just. I have friends, I said. People who would want to be there. People who are important to me. I'm sure you do. But you have to understand, Sam, this event is going to be photographed. We're going to be sharing these images with our friends, our business associates, well, everyone. I don't want to sound snobbish, but we need to present a certain image. The words hit me like a physical blow. I remember looking at Claire, waiting for her to say something. To defend me. To tell her parents that they were being horrible, that the people in my life were good people, that the image didn't matter as much as the feeling. She said nothing. She just stared at the table. I knew she was caught in the middle, but in that moment, it felt like she'd chosen her side. I excused myself. I went to the bathroom and splashed water on my face, and I stared at my reflection in the mirror of their guest bathroom, and I thought about all the times my father had told me to keep my head down and keep working. I thought about all the nights I'd stayed up late to learn new skills, all the weekends I'd given up to build something from nothing. I thought about my mother, who worked double shifts to put food on the table, and my brother, who'd made so many bad choices that I couldn't even look at him anymore. I thought about the suit I'd bought for this occasion. A better one this time. More expensive. But I still looked like what I was. A working man. And to them, that was the worst thing you could be. The next few months were a blur of small humiliations and silent resentments. I found out about the catering menu when Claire showed me the invoice. It was ridiculous. $500 per person for food that nobody would remember a week later. The open bar alone would cost more than my truck. Your mother sent me the numbers, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. Claire, this is a lot. I know, she said. But my mom is paying for it. It's her money. She wants it done her way. It's not her wedding. Sam, please. Can we just not fight about this? I just want things to be nice. I want everyone to have a good time. And I don't. Of course you do. But you're not used to this kind of thing. You don't understand what's expected. Expected. That word again. Like I was supposed to know some secret set of rules that everyone else grew up learning. Like not knowing which fork to use made me less of a person. What about the rehearsal dinner? I asked. Did you talk to your mom about that? Claire wouldn't meet my eyes. She said she already booked something. A restaurant downtown. That's not how it works. The groom's family pays for the rehearsal dinner. That's tradition. She said it's fine. She said it's taken care of. Claire, what does that mean? Did she talk to my mother? Did she even call her? Your mother doesn't have a reliable phone, Sam. You know that. She's always working. My mother would have taken the day off. She'd have done anything to help with this wedding. But she's being treated like. Like what? Like someone who doesn't belong. The words hung in the air between us. I could see Claire's face, see the part of her that knew her parents were wrong, and the larger part that was too afraid to stand up to them. I'm not going to let this happen, I said. I don't care if they think I'm some kind of peasant. I don't care if they mock my job and my suit and my family. But I am not going to let them cut my mother out of this wedding. Claire started to cry. What do you want me to do? They're my parents. They're paying for everything. If I push back, they'll withdraw the money, and then what? We can't afford this wedding on our own. You know we can't. I could have paid for a wedding, I said. A normal one. A nice one. We didn't need all of this. We didn't need a Hamptons venue and a French dress and a band that plays at celebrity weddings. We could have had something real. Real, Claire said, and there was something bitter in her voice now. What does that even mean? You talk about real like you're the only one who knows what it means. But your version of real is just a smaller version of what I was raised to want. It's settling for less and calling it virtue. It's not settling. It's being smart. It's living within your means. Well, I'm tired of your means, Claire said. I'm tired of every conversation being about money and who's paying for what and what's fair and what's traditional. My parents are paying for this wedding because they can afford to. That should be a good thing. I didn't have the energy to fight with her. I just nodded and walked away. I think that was the first time I really started to wonder whether we were going to make it. The wedding was 6 weeks away when the first domino fell. My mother called me on a Wednesday night, and I could tell from her voice that something was wrong. My mother has this way of sounding cheerful even when everything is falling apart, but that night she sounded hollow. Sam, honey, I got a call from Claire's mother. What did she want? She said they wanted to make sure I knew about the dress code. For the rehearsal dinner. The dress code. There's a dress code, apparently. Black tie. I'm supposed to get a gown. My mother is 62 years old. She's been a nurse for 40 years. She owns one dress that she wears to weddings and funerals, and it's not black tie anything. Mom, that's ridiculous. I'll tell Claire it's fine. You can wear whatever you want. Sam, that's not really the point. I told your aunt about it, and she got all upset because she hasn't been able to afford anything nice since Uncle Gary passed. And then your cousin called, and she said she'd heard from the groom's mother that the rehearsal dinner was cancelled anyway. That it was being combined with the reception or something. What? No. The rehearsal dinner is Friday night. I'm supposed to. Your fiancé's mother said they decided to simplify things. That there wasn't enough time to plan two separate events. But honey, it felt like she was telling me I wasn't welcome. I clenched the phone so hard I thought it might crack. Mom, I'm going to handle this. I promise. Nobody is excluding you from anything. But I knew even as I said it that it wasn't true. They'd already excluded her. They'd excluded all of my family. They were making it clear that this was their event, their show, their performance of wealth and status, and anyone who couldn't keep up the act would be quietly cut out. I called Claire that night and asked her about it. She was evasive. She said her mother had just been trying to reduce stress. That nobody had meant anything by it. Claire, they told my mother the rehearsal dinner was cancelled. They never even invited her. They just assumed she wouldn't fit in. That's not what happened. My mom was just trying to. Your mom made my mother feel like garbage. And I'm supposed to be okay with that. You're overreacting, Sam. You always do this. You assume the worst about my family. Because your family keeps proving me right. We fought for an hour. By the end, Claire was crying, and I was furious, and nothing had been resolved. She kept saying I needed to understand where her parents were coming from, that they just wanted things to be perfect, that they'd been waiting their whole lives for this. I told her I didn't want perfect. I just wanted decent. She hung up on me. 2 weeks later, I got a call from the venue. The one in the Hamptons. They were confirming the final payment schedule. I don't have the details, I told the woman on the phone. My fiancé's mother is handling the payments. Actually, sir, we have you listed as the point of contact for the final balance. The invoice was sent to you 3 weeks ago. I never received any invoice. Let me check my records, here it is. It was sent to your email address on file. I checked my email while I was on the phone. Nothing. I asked the woman to resend it, and when it came through, my stomach dropped. The balance due was $58,000. That was the remaining amount after all the deposits Marguerite had already made. And it was due in 10 days. I called Marguerite immediately. She picked up on the first ring, which should have been my first clue that something was wrong. Sam, darling. How are you? Marguerite, I just got a call from the venue. There's a balance of almost $60,000 due in 10 days. Oh, yes. That. We were meaning to talk to you about that. Talk to me about what? I thought you were paying for the venue. We've been paying for the venue, Sam. And the catering. And the flowers. And the band. And the photography. And the dress. And about 100 other things you probably don't know about. We've spent well over $200,000 on this wedding. I know that. And I'm grateful. But this is your wedding. You're paying for it? Actually, she said, and there was something different in her voice now. Something cold. The agreement was that Claire's father and I would cover the wedding, and you would handle certain expenses that traditionally fall to the groom's family. The honeymoon. The rehearsal dinner. Those sorts of things. We were under the impression you'd take care of the venue balance as a kind of gesture. Nobody told me about any venue balance. You never mentioned this. We sent the invoice to your email. Theodore asked his assistant to send it. His assistant? Why would his assistant? Because Theodore is very busy, Sam. And we assumed that you, as a businessman, would be able to handle a simple payment. But if you can't, well, I suppose we could cover it. But it would mean scaling back in other areas. The honeymoon would have to be less extravagant. Claire would be so disappointed. I realized what was happening. I felt the trap closing around me. You never meant to pay for the whole wedding, I said slowly. You just made it look like you were. You let me think you were covering everything so I wouldn't ask questions. And now you're trying to force me to pay for something I never agreed to. Sam, that's not fair. We've been generous. We've been more than generous. But we also think it's important that you show some commitment. Some skin in the game. You're marrying into a family with standards, and we need to know you can meet them. My skin in the game? I've been in this for 3 years. I've been working myself to the bone to build a life with your daughter. But because I don't have a trust fund, you think I need to prove myself by spending money I don't have. I think, Marguerite said, that if you can't afford to contribute to your own wedding, maybe you're not ready to get married at all. I hung up. I called Claire. She didn't answer. I left a message. She didn't call back. I sat in my kitchen that night, staring at the invoice on my phone, and I realized that this was the moment. The moment I had to decide whether to keep being the person they thought I was or finally show them who I really was. But I wasn't ready yet. I still loved Claire. I still wanted to marry her. I told myself that this was just a misunderstanding, that her parents were difficult but not malicious, that once we were married, things would change. I was wrong. Over the next 2 weeks, I managed to scrape together the money. I took out a loan against my business. I sold my truck and bought a beater to get around. I borrowed from friends who could barely afford to lend it. I drained my savings account, the one I'd been building since I was 18 years old. $58,000. Gone. Just like that. I didn't tell Claire where the money came from. I didn't want her to know how much I'd sacrificed, how many people I'd had to lean on. I thought I was being noble. Strong. The kind of man who handles things without complaint. But the stress was eating me alive. I started sleeping poorly. I lost weight. I couldn't focus at work. My employees noticed, started asking questions, started worrying about whether the business was going to survive. And then, 2 weeks before the wedding, I got another call. This time it was Theodore. Sam, I need to talk to you about something. It's a bit sensitive. Go ahead. Claire's mother and I have been thinking. We've decided to make a small change to the wedding arrangements. Just a minor adjustment. What kind of adjustment? Well, we've decided to include a clause in the prenuptial agreement. Nothing major. Just something to protect Claire's assets in case, well, in case things don't work out. A prenup? We never discussed a prenup. We're discussing it now. It's a standard part of any marriage in our family. Theodore's family has certain assets that need to be protected. And Claire will eventually inherit, well, it's all quite substantial. We just want to make sure everything is properly documented. You want to protect her assets from me. I'm protecting my daughter's future, Sam. It's nothing personal. Nothing personal? You're literally telling me you don't trust me. Trust has nothing to do with it. This is business. Claire will inherit money one day. A lot of money. We need to ensure that in the event of a divorce, she doesn't lose everything to someone who didn't earn it. Someone who didn't earn it? Is that what you think I am? A gold digger? I think you're a hard-working man, Sam. I think you've built a nice little business. But nice little businesses don't compare to what we built. There are levels to this, and you're not on ours. I felt the words like knives. But there was something else, something underneath the hurt. A voice in my head that sounded like my father's voice, telling me to keep my mouth shut and bide my time. The same voice that had kept me quiet for years, that had made me swallow every insult and every injustice. But I didn't want to listen to that voice anymore. "I'll have my lawyer look at the prenup," I said. "Send it over." Theodore seemed surprised. "Your lawyer?" "Yes. I have a lawyer. Did you think someone like me couldn't afford one?" No. Of course not. I'll have him review the documents. If everything is fair, I'll sign. If it's not, we can negotiate. That's how business works, right? That's what you do." I hung up. My hands were shaking. I'd never spoken to Theodore like that before. I'd never been the one to push back. But something had changed. Some part of me had finally had enough. The morning of the rehearsal dinner, I woke up to a text from Claire. It said, simply, "We need to talk." I called her immediately. She answered on the first ring, and I could hear in her voice that she'd been crying. "Sam, I don't know how to say this." "Say what?" "My parents found out. About the money. The $58,000. They know you took out a loan and sold your truck." "How did they find out?" "My dad has a friend at your bank. He saw the paperwork. He told my dad." I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. "Your dad has someone spying on me." "It's not spying. It's just, he wanted to make sure you were stable. Financially. He has people who can check these things." "Claire, that's insane. That's completely insane." "I know. I know it's crazy. But they were worried, Sam. They saw you take out a huge loan and they were afraid you were in trouble. They were trying to protect me." "Protect you from what?" "From a guy who spent every penny he had to pay for your wedding." "They didn't know that. They thought you were hiding something. They thought maybe you were in debt or something." "I am in debt now? I'm in debt to the bank and to my friends and to everyone else I borrowed from. Because of your parents." "Sam, please. We can figure this out. My parents said they would help us. They said they would forgive the loan. But they need you to sign something first." "What kind of something?" "A post-nuptial agreement. After we're married. Something that protects their money." "Their money. Not yours. Theirs. It's the same thing." "It's really not." Claire started crying harder. "Please, Sam. I just want to get married. I just want us to be together. Can't we do this one thing? For me." I thought about my mother. I thought about the dress she'd bought for the wedding, a beautiful navy blue gown that she'd saved up for months to afford. I thought about my friends, who had all agreed to rent tuxedos and put on a show for these people. I thought about my business, which was struggling now because I'd taken out money I didn't have. And I thought about Claire. The woman I loved. The woman who was asking me to sign away my dignity so her parents would approve of me. "I need to think," I said. "I'll call you back." I didn't call her back. Not right away. I spent the day driving around, trying to clear my head. I ended up at my mother's house. She was getting ready for the rehearsal dinner, putting on that blue gown, doing her hair in the bathroom mirror. "Sam, honey, you look terrible," she said when she saw me. "What's wrong?" I told her everything. The invoice. The loan. The prenup. The spy at the bank. The post-nuptial agreement. My mother listened without interrupting. When I was finished, She put down her hairbrush and took my hands. Sam, I raised you to be a good man. A hard-working man. A man who keeps his promises and takes care of his family. But I also raised you to have self-respect. Mom, I know. But I love her. I know you do, honey. And I love her too. But love isn't enough if you're being treated like a second-class citizen. You need to decide what you're willing to accept. And you need to be willing to walk away if it's not enough. I can't walk away. The wedding is tomorrow. There's so much money invested, so many people coming. Sam, I don't care about the money. I don't care about the people. I care about you. And I can see that you're breaking. I can see what this is doing to you. It's just one more day, I said. Just one more day, and then it's done. We're married. And then it's just us. Just us, my mother repeated. Honey, is it going to be just us? Or is it going to be you, Claire, and her parents? Forever. I didn't have an answer. The rehearsal dinner was at a restaurant downtown. One of those places where the menu doesn't have prices and the waiters look down their noses at you. I arrived late, still wearing the jeans I'd been driving in. I hadn't bothered with the suit. Marguerite looked at me like I'd tracked mud on her floor. Sam, you're not dressed. No, I'm not. Claire, darling, did you see? I see, Claire said. She was wearing a beautiful dress, all white lace and silk, and she looked confused and scared. Sam, what's going on? I need to talk to you, I said. Alone. Can it wait? Everyone is here. My parents' friends, the wedding party. It can't wait. Claire followed me outside. The street was quiet, mostly empty. Just the two of us and the sound of traffic in the distance. What's happening? She asked. You're scaring me. I think we need to call off the wedding. Her face went pale. What? Sam, no. We can't. Everything is planned. Everything is paid for. I know. And that's exactly the problem. Everything is planned and paid for. Except me. Except the part where I exist as a person instead of a prop in your parents' production. Sam, that's not. I know you don't mean it that way. I know you just want everyone to be happy. But you're not seeing what's happening. You're not seeing that your parents have been manipulating us from the start. They're just trying to help. Help. They're trying to control us. They're trying to make sure I never have any power in this relationship. They want me to be grateful. They want me to be indebted. They want me to sign away my rights before we even say I do. Then don't sign. We'll figure something out. It's not about the prenup. It's about everything. The way they look at me. The way they talk about my family. The way they've been treating me like a threat instead of a son-in-law. Claire started crying again. I can't do this without you, Sam. I can't go back in there and tell everyone the wedding is off. My parents will kill me. I'm not asking you to do anything, I said. I'm just telling you that I can't do this. Not like this. Then what do you want me to do? What can I do to make this better? I looked at her. The woman I loved. The woman who'd been caught in the middle of a war she didn't start. And I realized something important, she wasn't the enemy. She was just as trapped as I was. I want you to choose me, I said. Not your parents. Not the money. Not the wedding. Me. Just me. I do choose you. No, you choose the version of me that your parents will accept. The version that fits into their world. But that's not who I am. That's not who I'll ever be. Then what am I supposed to do? You're supposed to decide if that's okay. If you can live with that. and if you can't, then you need to let me go. Claire was silent for a long moment. I could see her struggling, see the war going on inside her. And I knew, in that moment, what her answer would be. I can't, she finally said. I can't fight them. I've never been able to fight them. I know. I'm sorry, Sam. I'm so sorry. Me too. I walked away from the rehearsal dinner. I didn't go back inside. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. I just walked down the street and kept walking until I found a place to sit and collect myself. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up in my empty apartment, staring at the walls, thinking about everything I'd lost. The woman I loved. The future we'd planned. The money I'd thrown away. The pride I'd swallowed. I thought about my father. About all the times he'd told me to stand up for myself. About the time he'd caught my brother stealing from his wallet and had thrown him out of the house. My father had always said that you teach people how to treat you. If you let them walk all over you, they'll never stop walking. I'd let them walk all over me for 3 years. But not anymore. The wedding was supposed to happen at 2 p.m. I didn't show up. I turned off my phone. I drove out to a job site, one of the houses I'd been renovating, and I spent the afternoon sanding drywall. The repetitive motion was soothing, meditative. It gave me time to think. Around 4 p.m., I turned my phone back on. I had dozens of messages. From Claire. From Marguerite. From Theodore. From my mother. From friends. Everyone asking where I was, what was happening, whether the wedding was still on. I called my mother first. Sam, where are you? Claire's mother is having a meltdown. Everyone is waiting. I'm not coming, Mom. What do you mean? The wedding. I'm not getting married. Not today. Not to Claire. I heard my mother sigh. It wasn't a sigh of disappointment. It was a sigh of relief. I was hoping you'd say that. What? Sam, I've been worried about you for months. I've been watching you shrink. Watching you let them chip away at who you are. I didn't want to say anything because I know how much you love her. But honey, you were losing yourself. I know, Mom. I know. What are you going to do now? I'm going to take a break. Think about what comes next. That sounds like a good plan. And Sam. Yeah. I'm proud of you. For finally standing up for yourself. The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings, angry phone calls, and wounded pride. Claire's parents tried to sue me for the cost of the wedding. They claimed I'd committed to paying for it and then backed out at the last minute. They produced emails and texts and invoices. They made it look like I was the one who'd changed the agreement, who'd lied about my financial situation. But I had receipts. I had the original invoice from the venue, the one they'd tried to hide from me. I had the texts from Claire, the ones where she'd thanked me for taking out the loan. I had the recording of Marguerite telling me I'd be expected to contribute. And I had a very, very good lawyer. Her name was Jennifer. She was a friend of a friend, a no-nonsense woman who'd seen everything. She looked at my case and laughed. These people are entitled, she said. They think they can push you around because they have money. But money doesn't make you right. I just want it to be over, I said. I don't care about the money. I just want them to leave me alone. That's not going to happen. Not unless we make it stop. And we make it stop by winning. So we did. We filed a countersuit for the money I'd spent on the wedding, arguing that they'd manipulated me into paying for things I never agreed to. We subpoenaed records from the bank where Theodore's friend worked, exposing the invasion of my privacy. We deposed Marguerite and Theodore and watched them squirm under questioning. The case never made it to trial. They settled. They paid me back the $58,000, plus legal fees. They signed agreements promising not to contact me or speak publicly about the situation. And just like that, it was over. I don't really know what happened to Claire. I heard through mutual friends that she moved to Europe for a while. That she dated some businessman her parents approved of. That she might have gotten married again, though I never confirmed it. I hope she's happy. I really do. Despite everything, I loved her. And part of me will always wonder what could have been if her parents had just been different. If they'd seen me as a person instead of a threat. But I also know that it never would have worked. Not with them in the picture. Not with the constant pressure to be something I wasn't. I rebuilt my business. Took me about a year to recover from the financial hit, but I managed. I hired better people. I expanded. I started taking on bigger projects, renovating entire houses instead of just rooms. I met someone else eventually. A woman named Rachel who works at a nonprofit. She's not rich. She doesn't come from money. She's the daughter of a schoolteacher and a mail carrier, and she knows how to do her own taxes and change a tire and live on a budget. We're not married yet. We might be someday. But we're in no rush. I still think about that day sometimes. The day I walked away. I think about the look on Claire's face when I told her I couldn't go through with it. I think about the fear in her eyes, the fear of disappointing her parents. And I think about how different my life would be if I'd stayed. If I'd signed that prenup and worn the right suit and kept my mouth shut. I'd be rich, probably. I'd have a big house and nice cars and all the things that money can buy. But I'd also be miserable. I'd be someone I didn't recognize. Someone who'd given up his integrity for the price of a wedding. I think about what my father would have said. He always told me that the only thing you really own is your word, your reputation, your character. Everything else is just stuff. And stuff can be taken away. The house I'm building now? It's not in the Hamptons. It's a modest place on a quiet street in a neighborhood that's still coming up. I'm building it with my own hands, the same way I built every house before it. And when it's done, I'm going to sit on the porch and drink cheap coffee and watch the sun rise. And I'm not going to think about Claire's parents or their money or their judgment. I'm going to think about the fact that I walked away with my soul intact. That's worth more than any wedding could ever cost. The last time I saw Theodore was in the courthouse, during the settlement hearing. He looked older than I remembered. Smaller somehow. The power he'd had over me had vanished the moment I stopped being afraid of him. He tried to shake my hand. I didn't take it. "You made a mistake, Sam," he said. "You could have had everything." "I already had everything," I said. "I just didn't realize it until I walked away." I left him standing in the hallway, and I never looked back. Claire's mother sent me a letter once, about a year after everything happened. I never opened it. I threw it away the day it arrived. There's something about closure that people don't understand. It's not something someone gives you. It's something you choose. You choose to let go. You choose to move on. You choose to stop letting the past define your future. I've made my choice. And I stand by it. I still talk to my mother every Sunday. She's retired now, spending her days gardening and volunteering at the hospital where she used to work. She's happy, finally. She deserves to be happy. My brother reached out a few months ago. He's been through some things. Made some changes. It's going to take time to rebuild that relationship, but I'm willing to try. Because that's the thing about family. It's messy and complicated and sometimes it breaks your heart. But it's also the only thing that matters. Real family, the kind that shows up for you when you're at your lowest, the kind that tells you the truth even when it hurts, the kind that loves you even when you're unlovable. I have that now. I have friends who would do anything for me. I have employees who trust me. I have a woman who sees me for who I really am and loves me anyway. And I have my self-respect. That's something nobody can ever take away from me again. I'm sitting on the porch of that house as I write this. The sun is just coming up, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. There's a cup of coffee at my elbow, cheap and bitter and perfect. Rachel is still asleep inside. She'll get up soon and make us breakfast, and we'll talk about our day and the projects we're working on and the future we're building together. It's not a grand life. It's not the life Claire's parents would have wanted for their daughter. There are no Hamptons mansions or celebrity photographers or $500 dinners. But it's real. It's solid. It's built on a foundation that can withstand the storms. And that's all I ever really wanted.